welcome everybody to Hope for Our Times. Today is, listen, I have a very special guest today. He's on my program every now and then, a very good friend. And but before I introduce him to you, I want to thank all the folks over in Hawaii, Calvary Chapel of Pearl Harbor, Pastor Darrell there, and the whole team. Just a fantastic time hosting the conference with all of us. And then, so Calvary Chapel Pearl Harbor was over the weekend. Calvary Chapel of the Harbor is Tuesday, like tomorrow. And today is Monday, and we're going to roll. So if you're in Southern California, you want to join us, Pastor Joe Pedic, Hananiah Naftali is going to be there, and myself, 7 p.m. at Calvary Chapel of the Harbor in Huntington Beach. And hey, join us if you can. All right, let's get rolling. So my guest today is my good friend from Israel, David Tal, is here. Thank you for joining us, David.
Well, it's amazing to be here again and talk about what's going on, especially on a day that has a nice indicative number like today.
So what is that? Just.
Well, today we're counting 500 days since the 7th of October last year. And so Israel News and Israel itself is in some kind of reflective mode about things that have happened, and it just kind of tends to bring the spotlight on things that are going to happen, that I think is basically what we're going to be talking about. But this is a good day to remember a lot of the things that have happened since the 7th of October, and a couple of, since I've been kind of dealing with the actual, statistics. It was 1,200 Israelis who were murdered on that day, 250 Israelis who were kidnapped on that day. 73 of them are still in captivity 500 days later, including men, women, old men, and most impactfully, babies. A couple of babies. In the fighting, we've lost 846 soldiers. Of a population of 9 million. I mean, that's a high rate. 5,700 people altogether have been wounded during the war. So we're talking probably about 2,600, I think, people actually killed as a result of this war, soldiers and civilians, which has got us all creeped out. 50,000 people have been displaced from their homes for more than a year and a half, both in the north and in the south. And a statistic that I came across yesterday that was very interesting, 32,000 times the sirens have gone off in different places in Israel where people had to scramble to their bomb shelters, my mom included. And the sirens went off as a result of missiles that came in from Gaza, missiles that came in from Lebanon, missiles that came in from Iraq, missiles that came in from Yemen, missiles that came in from Iran, and again, we kind of tend to forget that this has been a massive ordeal for Israel.
When we were in Hawaii, my wife and I were just walking down the street and met a couple of Israelis, got to talking with them. I asked one of them, I just asked him where he's from, because I was thinking he was probably Israeli. Sure enough, he was, and then introduced me to one of his friends. And his friend's mom was killed from one of the rocket attacks in the north from Hezbollah. And he said I think he said she was on the second floor. There's another person that was killed on the first floor when the rocket attack hit, and it was a while back. But just listening to that, this is real. And so we look at everything that's happening. So we just watched these last two sets of hostages being released. Things are not looking good. You start looking at it, how many hostages are still alive? And I mean, I'm reading some of the things that Hamas is saying and doing, but I mean, I really got to wonder about the psyche of Israelis. As you're looking at these things, there's some pretty horrific things just to see.
Well, one of the things that I've been trying to stress lately, it's not a hostage release, and it's not a hostage agreement, and it's not a ceasefire agreement. It's a ransom. And when you ransom somebody who's been kidnapped by evil people, and they say, we want something in return for you to get your loved ones back. What Israel is paying is maybe not suitcases with cash, but though I wouldn't be surprised at that. But we're paying in what I would call emotional terror. When they bring these hostages out, 2 by 2, 3 by 3, three every week, when they bring them out and parade them in front of the world with these scared women, these fully armed men saying, "Look at what we're doing," and they bring out these 80-year-old guy that looks like a Holocaust survivor. Just the images of that are part of the ransom that we're paying to be able to deal with that, to be able to accept that and not flatten Gaza completely. And as opposed to what people think, we have not flattened Gaza. That might be coming. We can talk about that if you want to go into that a little bit deeper. So it's a ransom, and what we're paying for our loved ones to come back is these terrible kind of sights of ridicule. It seems, again, I always have the vision of, I don't know if you saw the Lion, Witch and the Wardrobe, the movie itself or the book, where the scene where Aslan is being ridiculed by all the evil people on the flat table there. It's that kind of feeling that we're feeling right now, and most of the Christians who know C.S. Lewis's books would understand what I'm talking about.
As we look at the Trump effect, there's very interesting things that are taking place. And so let's walk through Saudi Arabia. Let's start there. I want to ask you about Saudi Arabia. Got to ask you about Egypt, because some...
well, they're connected. It's all connected.
And then we're going to head over to the UK and Europe and see what's going on over there, because Trump and J.D. Vance have a lot of things to say about what's happening there too. So we're going to walk through all of these things. So let's start first of all, Saudi Arabia and Egypt.
I'm watching the Israeli news literally as we're speaking right here in the corner of the living room, and Trump has changed everything. I mean, him stepping into the office, and again, we as Americans on the American side, we understand the effects and the change that Trump has had on the American administration, and we're seeing everything that's happening on the war on truth, even here, on the gender war. I mean, in the first month and a half, he's hit the road running, and changing everything. But that effect has actually rippled out to Europe and rippled out definitely to the Middle East. And everything in the Middle East is being affected by that new dynamic. And before we go into the core of it, Lebanon. The whole situation in Lebanon has changed because of the Trump effect. There is a Trump representative now in Lebanon trying to put together a Lebanese government that doesn't have Hezbollah as part of the ruling government in Lebanon. Hezbollah, remember, is the proxy that actually was used by Iran. So the United States is pushing for a non-Hezbollah government in Lebanon. The Hezbollah is pushing back against it, and actually heard a UNIFIL, a United Nations soldier, the other day. The world is quiet, but again, even there, Trump has actually had something to say. And the planes bringing in money for the Hezbollah that were about to land in Beirut had been turned around and sent back to Iran. I mean, that's the Trump effect in Lebanon. There's a Trump effect in Syria. There's a Trump effect even in Iraq, who stood up and said, we're not fighting. So he's rippling out. Marco Rubio was in Israel yesterday, is now in Saudi Arabia. What's his Witkoff, his special representative, was in Israel and now in Saudi Arabia, and there's a feeling that everything is moving towards one. I tend to call it a mega deal that Trump is doing in the whole Middle East, that is going to include a lot of different things that we'll talk about it. The catchphrase that I heard a little while ago that I find is fascinating is, we used to say that, Biden was playing chess and was playing checkers, and Trump is playing chess. The other day I heard somebody say, no, Trump is not playing chess, he's playing Monopoly. He's playing worldwide Monopoly. and he's doing it in real estate style. And he's saying, if you don't play with me, you're going to go to jail, and you have a get out of jail free. I mean, look what he's doing in Ukraine. He's on a whole different game than the rest of them are, and that is indicative of what's going on in Israel, Egypt, Saudi Arabia. He's tying that together. There is the agreement that we signed a couple of months ago, almost a month and a half ago, that is still kind of acting out. But everybody kind of believes that agreement isn't going to go all the way to the end, because the Hezbollah realizes that there's a new sheriff in town, and they have no reason to fulfill the agreement. I mean, they're not going to gain anything. They only have anything. The only agreement that they can agree to is something that will take them out of power. And what Trump did with his new initiative was said the whole Palestinian issue is not about land. It's not about a two-state solution. It's not about that. It's about people. They're suffering. Let's solve the suffering. And he's actually put this and said, wait, are you suffering? If you're suffering, we can solve the suffering. If you're not suffering and something else is important, then we can't help you. And he's put those in front. And that's why the whole world is all freaked out, which is why the Arab League is yapping with each other right now. They haven't done that for a year and a half, but they're meeting in Cairo in a couple of weeks, and they're going to sit down. And because of what Trump says, this is what I want to do. And the Arab League is now scattering around and said, okay, we don't want you to do this. So we have no choice now but to come with an agreement. We come with an option, come with a plan that solves all of these different issues. Just don't do what you say you're going to do.
Okay. So what I'm watching is it appears that the Arab communities are saying, stay out of it, we'll fix it. Kind of like, this is the Mideast thing. We think different than you Westerners do. And that's what it appears to me. You know, you'd have more insight on that. Plus, it appears to me what's happened with Trump, it's like he's dropped this giant bomb, so to speak, geopolitically, and now everybody has to deal with all of those things. And it's quite possibly part of the way he negotiates. Here's an interesting comment. This is in Zero Hedge. The UAE ambassador to the U.S., Youssef Al-Otaiba, in an interview called the plan difficult but inevitable, talking about Trump's plan, it said he sees no alternative but Trump's plan to expel Gaza's population and undertake massive economic redevelopment of the Strip. And then he said, there is no other plan. I mean, the whole thing is just so fascinating.
So the Arab world has been pushing a false narrative. The Muslim world and the left have been pushing a false narrative that this is all about Palestinian national rights. This is all about every people wants a homeland and so forth and so on. And basically what Trump did is, first of all, pull the rug out from that. He says it's not about the rights. It's not about the homeland of the Palestinians. There are Palestinians living in Egypt. There's Palestinians living in Jordan. 80% of the population in Jordan is Palestinian. I mean, you could turn that into the homeland of the Palestinians as much as anything else. So that is not the issue. And he says, I want to solve the suffering. I want to solve the suffering of the Palestinian people. And the Arabs are saying, wait a minute, we were willing to sacrifice the Palestinian people in order to fight against the concept of a Jewish Israel in the Middle East. Trump is saying, we don't have to sacrifice. We can solve them. And let's see you say that what you want is to destroy a Jewish state. Let's see you say it publicly. And that's what he is forcing them to do right now. And that's what's going to happen. So they're going to say everything about the Palestinian rights. But what he has managed to do is he's got a Sisi by the throat. He's got MBS by the throat. He's got even, I'm going to say it with a little bit of a choking system, he's got Israel by the throat. And he's saying this: either it's about a Palestinian state, and we continue to fight for another 50 years, or it's about Palestinian suffering. Here's my plan to solve the suffering. Let's see if you're serious about the suffering of the Palestinian state. And again, the Palestinians are saying, wait a minute, we're refugees. And then they're saying, yeah, but if we're refugees, then we don't want to leave. I mean, you've got this duality in there. And what Trump is doing, like a bar of white light into the darkness, saying, this is what you say, prove it. And that's what is happening right now. MBS by the way, is a serious, serious problem, because MBS is going to be the hinge-pin. Mohammed bin Salman, the crown prince of Saudi Arabia, is going to be the hinge-pin. What more or less, he's going to be the leader of the Arab world. I think he likes the idea, but it's going to come at a price. He is going to be the Anwar Sadat of this stage of the new diplomacy. I don't know if you remember, Anwar Sadat was the first Arab leader who said, I will go to Jerusalem and make a peace agreement. He was the president of Egypt at the time. And he made the peace agreement in 1979 with Israel. And he was the first Arab leader to give legitimacy to Israel. Mohammed bin Salman is going to be the Anwar Sadat of this round. The only problem is that Anwar Sadat was assassinated by the Muslim Brotherhood, which is the founding factor of the Hamas. And that, I think, is part of the play that is playing on here.
Well, that's really interesting. I had Avi Lipkin on not too long ago. I don't know if you're familiar with Avi, but he said that he goes, I'm going to go out on a limb here, but he said it wouldn't surprise me if MBS gets assassinated. And he's talking about the bad elements there. And he said also, the Jordanian king too, he said, because there's some very bad elements that want to eliminate them. And I found it interesting when he said that.
Just as a side note, I don't know. Here's something, I don't know. This is weird. Something came across my feed a while ago that the first LGBT imam of a Muslim mosque in South Africa was shot down in front of the mosque. He was the first gay Muslim imam, and they killed him. We're dealing with a religion that is very, very violent in dealing with the dissidents inside its own religion. Even if the leadership, for pragmatic reasons, MBS doesn't like Israel, Assisi doesn't like Israel, King Abdullah doesn't like Israel, and you saw him choking at the meeting with President Trump, poor thing. None of them like Israel, but they understand the dynamic of this. And I'm going to say something, since we are on a Christian channel. More and more people are realizing that cursing Israel comes at a price. Blessing Israel comes at a bonus. And more in the world are realizing, in the Western world, we don't like Israel. We want to curse Israel, but we know that if we curse Israel, we're going to suffer. Because look at what's happened. Look at what's happened to Egypt. Look what's happened to Jordan. Look what's happened to Syria. All of them have been cursing Israel for years. Look what's happened to the whole Arab world that's been cursing Israel since they're starting to realize that cursing Israel, whether they know it's a spiritual thing or not, comes at a price. And blessing Israel, you get a bonus for it. And they're trying to hook him to the bonus, and we're seeing more and more of that dynamic spreading across the Middle East in more and more ways. And I think it's fascinating to live in these times that we're living in.
I would say it definitely is. Let me ask you about Egypt, and because they seem to be amassing weapons. We talked a little bit about this a few weeks ago, but we're watching this, and there's a lot of concerns about what Egypt's plans are. Are they planning? Are they planning an attack against Israel?
Two background elements about Egypt. First of all, we're talking about 110 million people that live in poverty. I mean, they have a serious, serious problem. If you look at a map of Israel, I think something like 85% of the population lives along the little strip of land that goes along the Nile Delta. and the poverty is crazy, and you have to understand that the economy actually weighs on the shoulders of the Egyptian president as much as everything else, which has ramifications as far as the Suez Canal is concerned. We figure that they've lost $8 billion in revenue every year ever since this war started off. What has to do with he needs American aid, otherwise his people are going to choke. So he's on this side, which is why he's willing to play this game. On the other hand, he has a population that is very anti-Israel. I saw a series about Egyptian television. I don't know if you know, but Egyptian movies are, Egypt is the Hollywood of the Arab movie industry. Okay, and the Egyptian movies coming out of Egypt today are anti-Semitic in the extreme. I'm talking about Jews in black hats with big nose, playing with dollars. I mean, that kind of mentality, and it's being pumped into the Egyptian people. So the Egyptian people are anti-Semitic. So you've got Assisi trying to deal with his economics, and he needs the United States, and as a result of that, Israel. And you have his people who are anti-Semitic in the extreme, and he's trying to balance all of these. The only thing that he can actually put pressure on America, meaning I need America to agree to something that I want to read, because Trump is saying, I'm going to do this, and if you don't do this, you're not going to pay. The only thing that he can do to put pressure on America is to rattle the border between Egypt and Israel and the peace agreement between Egypt and Israel. That's his only, how do you say, balancing point with the United States. So I'm going to put some tanks there, and I'm not going to say it, but if these tanks are here, then the peace agreement, because it's against the peace agreement with Israel, the peace agreement is in jeopardy. And the only thing that he can threaten is that. And he's doing it very, very quietly. I don't believe that Egypt wants to or thinks it can attack Israel. But like any bully, the threat of attack has a weight of its own. And I think that's what he's doing. He's trying to counterbalance President Trump by moving tanks into the Sinai Peninsula.
Such interesting dynamics. Watching everything. So Israel, this is in Israel 365 News today. Actually, yesterday, Israel releases 369 terrorists with warning. We won't forgive and we won't forget. So we are watching these terrorists being released. As I look at it, how do you have peace in Judea and Samaria? That's a problem. I mean, because there's a radical element that lives there. These terrorists are being released back to Gaza. They are rapists. They are murderers. You have kids who maybe their older brother was killed in the war that's going on in Gaza. So that creates this element of more evil, especially as Israel's releasing more terrorists. But Israel says we won't forgive and we won't forget. Well, that's, in my mind, that's understandable where Israel is. But you look at this and you try to figure out, how is this going to work out? Because in the hearts of these people is evil. When I was talking with this guy the other day, who said his mom was killed by a Hezbollah attack, he said there's 2.5 million people in Gaza and they're all evil, and I don't think the American mindset understands that, but that's what is really going on, and hence none of the Arab communities want any of the people from Gaza.
They're dangerous. I mean, the mentality, the hatred of Gaza, of the people in Gaza, and affiliates. By the way, it's the same hatred of Al-Qaeda, of Osama bin Laden. It's the same hatred of ISIS. It's that kind of mentality. That mentality is a problem for any moderate state, even a Muslim moderate state. I mean, think about Indonesia, which is a Muslim majority state, or other Muslim majority states don't want anything to do with these Palestinians because, as you said, they are a threat to any kind of stability because that is evil. The way I like to say it is that good can go viral. And again, this is what we as Christians try to do. We try to spread the rightness of God and try to make it spread as far as we can. But just like good can go viral and spread to a how do you say a Billy Graham kind of movement in some cases, evil can do the same thing. And that's what's happened in Gaza. So, yes, they are these people. Yes, every one of the 4,500 actual participants in October 7th, by the way, have a crosshairs on their backs. And anybody who knows anything about Israel says that when you have that kind of crosshair, it's just a matter of time. They will never be forgotten. I know there's a special unit inside the military, the Israeli establishment that has this list with guys who have how do you say, remembered the names by heart and are looking for them on social media, looking for them. I heard somebody say the other day, one of the guys at one of the rallies where they were releasing the hostages made a mistake and took his mask off. And we know his face now. And actually they said, just so you know, we've seen you now, you're on the list. And that kind of dynamic. But to go back to your point, if President Trump pulls this off and creates a area where Palestinians can go, that will be a destination for all of the Palestinians that are a problem. Meaning, if there ever is a Palestinian community created, let's say in Egypt, when Israel has a problem with Hamasniks in the West Bank, they will deport them to that place. What he has done is he has created a whole new dynamic. And again, you probably talking about this. There's so many prophetic elements that can connect to this, but he is creating a whole new dynamic where if the Palestinians have a place where across the River Jordan, somewhere else, how do you say, the homeland of Amalek, and the homeland of the Moabites. I mean, over there in those areas, if that is the place, then that can be for lack of a better word, the destination. And what the Palestinians in the West Bank are afraid of is if that ever happens, then Israel has a place, a right, an ability to move them away. Now, put it in a side note, the Palestinian Authority is allowing us to take care of business in the West Bank right now. I don't know if you know, but there's a semi-war going on in the northern part of the West Bank in Jenin and parts of Shechem, a little bit to the north. And the Palestinian Authority, which has quite a few followers, is being very careful about Israel doing this very, very. So we're taking Hamasniks out in the West Bank. We are putting Hamas heads down in the West Bank, doing what we should have done to them in Gaza before. They're putting there, and the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas, is saying yes. And as a result of that, part of the discussions that we were talking about, MBS, Egypt, and the United States are saying maybe the alternative to the Hamas in Gaza will be the Palestinian Authority. And I think that is part of what the Egyptians are going to put on the table in a week and a half when they put their plan up there, and that is the Palestinian Authority moving in. And I heard yesterday that the Hamas has agreed not to be in power at the end of this whole dynamic. So, yeah, that's part of the Trump effect.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's just so fascinating to watch how fast everything is moving and changing. And I did see that yesterday with the PA and Hamas saying they're willing to have the PA run Gaza, which to me, I mean, you know, the PA is still the PA. You know, they're a problem, but I guess Hamas is the bigger problem.
Well, here's the thing. The fact that the Hamas has agreed to that means that they're capitulating. They're giving up. That's a white flag for them. Mm-hmm. And whether that does happen or not, the fact that that has been put on the table means that they're in a wholly different place. But again, I have to go back to the 500 days. This has been taking too long. This has been going on too long. And one thing that's been coming out in Israeli news, I don't know if you've heard it lately, that in December of 23, meaning October, November, December, Hamas was about to break. completely. We're picking up the radio messages between them. I mean, we have recordings of the radio messages between the Hamas leadership. And I don't know if you remember, we were not allowing supplies into them. The whole world was going crazy about Israel not allowing supplies into Gaza, not allowing food into them, using, like they say, starvation as a weapon. And they were this close. They were talking about giving up Sinwar. They were talking about handing back the hostages. They were talking about giving into the whole war. And then the Biden administration pushed the button and said, you have to push aid into there. You have to push food into there. And we had won the war at that point. And it was the American administration that gave them back. So what Israel is saying this time is, if this doesn't work out, we will go back to using everything in our arsenal, including that.
Well, plus with the Trump administration supportive of Israel, it's going to be different than it was last time around. And, I also, so going back into the Bible, Gaza is actually land that was given to Israel by God. And Gaza's always been a problem. The tribe of Dan didn't want to have to deal with the people that were dwelling in Gaza. And it was too much of a fight for the tribe of Dan. So Dan said, no, we don't want to fight those people. And here it is, centuries later, literally thousands of years later, Gaza has always been a problem. David, you've talked a lot about the history of Gaza. I know we don't have a lot of time left, and I still got to ask you about Europe. So, just a couple more things. But let's go back to the history of Gaza, because not much has changed. I'm going through the life of David right now on Sunday nights. And he constantly has had to deal with the Philistines, the area of Gaza, and Amalek too, also. You mentioned the Amalekites. But we watched this in the history of Israel, and here we are. So walk us through a little bit of that.
Well, let's start off. Go back. I'd go even before David. Do you know Delilah was from?
Oh yeah, with Samson. Yes.
I mean, that's the Gaza that we've been dealing ever since. But the Philistines were a sea people. They were kicked out during the Davidic. Again, we had a problem with it. King Saul was killed by the Philistines that came from Gaza, but they were all the way up in the north. But we managed to put them down. They were completely put down. They disappeared from the historical record, the Philistines that lived in Gaza, until the Romans decide to use them as a trademark for Jew hatred and call the whole land after their name. So the name was called Palestine, even though the Philistines had long disappeared from the world stage. But now we're dealing with the area called Gaza. And again, this has become a rallying point. And again, this is a thorn. And God has said, you need to take care of what I told you to take care of. If you do not, it will be a thorn in your side for generations. Gaza is a thorn in our side. It was part of the British mandate. We did not conquer it in 1948. It was in Egyptian hands. In 1967, we conquered it and the rest of the Sinai. It becomes part of Israel. In the peace agreement that we talked about between Israel and Egypt, here's an interesting, we tried to give them Gaza back. We wanted to give them Gaza back. And here's the thing. We could have pressured the Egyptians in return for the peace agreement to take Gaza off our hands. It was Menachem Begin who read the same passages in the Bible and said, Gaza is part of the promised land. We can't give it back. And he's the reason that we still have Gaza in our hands. In 2005, we gave Gaza over to the Palestinians, and the Palestinians have been ruling Gaza ever since. But now we're seeing that Gaza is being used as a staging area, a jump-off point. And here's the thing. The whole Palestinian narrative is hinged on hatred of Israel, of hatred of the fact that the promised land and the chosen people are still in the eyes of God. That is the hatred that they're fighting about. It's not about a two-state solution. They've been offered 7 times. They've said no. It's not about the suffering of their people. It is to disassociate God, people, and land. That's what they're doing. That's what we're dealing with. And I'm glad that it's the President of the United States who is going to be reconnecting that connection. And we'll be hearing more about that as we go.
Yeah, it's interesting. We watch Turkey with Erdogan. he's made it clear, he's in Syria, but he's made it clear it's about Jerusalem. It's
Yep.
Damascus today, it's Jerusalem tomorrow. With Hamas October 7th, there were many people in Hamas said, hey, this is the Al-Aqsa flood, meaning it's about Jerusalem in the Jews.
Well, it's interesting that, the Europeans and the Westerners say it's about a two-state solution, but the Arabs are very clear about it. It's not about that. They never said it was about that.
Indeed. Just looking at all these different dynamics, what's going on with the nation of Israel and the Trump effect. We just got a couple more minutes left. Let's move over to Europe because Trump, he's affecting everybody and everything. People are completely, I look at what's happened in Canada with Trudeau, Mexico, parts of South America. It's amazing. But what's going on in Europe?
Europe has fallen under the influence of the wokest, progressivist, Islamic elements in the world. And the European leaders, because the woke and the Islam comes together, have actually gotten in bed with the devil, for lack of a better word, has been tying this together and has been anti-West, anti-Israel, and pro everything that Trump came out against. And that's where Europe is, where European leadership, or most of it. By the way, it's moving back right now as we speak. The percentage of the Muslims in Europe has been an influence on internal European politics, and as a result of that, on external European politics. And Europe has been using the United States as their policeman to police the seas and to save them from the threat of Russia. And then Trump comes in and says, I don't want to play this game anymore. And basically he's saying, America first. The war in Ukraine is a problem for America. We don't care what you think. We don't care what you do. We're going to solve it. We're going to solve it. We're going to use the tools, the powers, the soft and the hard powers that we have. We're going to solve the problem in Ukraine. And you guys have a trade deficit with us. We're going to solve it. You have to agree. You want to be safe from Russia, and you want an American military presence in Europe. You have to pay for it. And we're not going to pay for it on our own. So basically, what Trump has done is he's again pulled the rug out from the progressive, pro-Muslim mentality of Europe and says, "Okay, let's see, and let's see what you want to do. If you want to, fine. If you don't, we'll pull out. Trump will pull out of NATO like that." And all of the Europeans would say, oh, no, wait a minute, we're cold. And he did the same thing with the AI. Did you hear what Van said about the whole AI thing? He's saying, we're going to do what we want. You want to join us, fine. But we are not going to allow ourselves to be hampered by or held in by European progressive, whatever, let's all live together in peace and harmony. And all the European world goes, yeah. So again, this is the Trump effect that's saying, I will put America first. And here's the weird thing, and maybe to tie these two elements together, is the fact that when you put America first, you also put Israel first. And whether he's doing it spiritually or not, Trump is blessing Israel. And as a result of that, is being blessed. And I think it's an amazing time to see what's going to happen now.
I'm telling you, it was very interesting days. Every single day, the whole thing shifts again, and they're big shifts too, which is really amazing. But listen, we live in exciting days. Many people have said, many Christians said, I wish I lived in biblical times. Well, I look at this and I go, these are biblical times. It is so fascinating. David, speaking of biblical times, both you and I will be in Israel at the same time coming up soon. You have a tour, and then I'm doing I have a separate tour. You're leading a tour coming up here just a few weeks out with a group coming over from somewhere, from Hawaii, going there. That's exciting.
Literally, I got a surfer church coming in from the North Shore of Hawaii. Again, I kind of appreciate surfing a little bit more since I've been in California now, but they are the group that said we're coming no matter what, which is why I want to stress Israel is going to be back on the tourism map. And if you're realizing what's going on, understanding, experiencing, and seeing Israel is more important than anything that you can do. So start thinking about how you're going to make your way to Israel, because I mean, it's just, this is the time to come.
It, it is indeed. And by the way, the North Shore of Hawaii is like the biggest waves in the world. Absolutely amazing to see those. And I'll be there with, I think, one of your friends, Ronnie Winter, is going to be with us on my group. And I'm looking forward to seeing all of you guys. Many of you that are coming, I haven't met yet. Many going with David, he hasn't met yet. So this is going to be exciting times. I totally agree. Now is the time to go. I would be signing up. There's tour groups that are available. What I would say to anybody, I'd love to have you go with me. I'm sure Dave would love to have you go with him. But regardless, if you can't, you don't want to go with us, or you just can't, hey, just get over there to Israel. It'll enhance it's an eternal investment to just be able to go there. Really just changes your life and opens up your mind to things you cannot see just staying at home.
My father used to say that a week in Israel is like a month of Bible seminar. I mean, again, it's like you get to understand everything so clear. But you're going to be there, I'm going to be there, and we will be pushing content out of Israel back. So follow Hope for Our Times, because we want to see what Pastor Tom is going to do in Israel. And follow the Balagan Connection if you want to see what I'm going to be doing in Israel. And it's going to be very interesting, and we will overlap in a couple of places.
We will. In fact, well, I've heard it said that a week in Israel is like a year in seminary. And I would even put it to the place, literally, it is an investment that you can't really put a price tag on. So I would just tell everybody, hey, just go there, but do follow us. Thank you, David, for joining me. You can follow David at the Balagan Connection. There you can see his coffee cups. Do you sell those coffee cups? Do you have them available online?
We will have them available somewhere in the next week and a half, yes.
And your Balagan t-shirts too, I'm guessing.
Yep, that's what I'm working on.
There you go, everybody. So check out David. I look forward to seeing you in Israel just in a short time. God bless all of you for joining us. Make sure you like and subscribe and share this video. And we will see you back here tomorrow. Going to have a great week. I'm telling you, it's going to be great. Join us at Calvary Chapel of the Harbor, Huntington Beach on Tuesday night if you can, if you're in Southern California, with Pastor Joe Pettick and Hananiah Naftali and myself. I'll all be there. See y'all.